Hello, and welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host, Neil Magnuson, and this is the show where we talk about THC in ways that are meaningful and hopefully will make a difference in this world, because THC in our case is referring to, that cannabinoid that causes euphoria, but it's also talking about truth, hope, and change. And on this show, we try to provide some truth and in the process come up with a little bit of hope to have that we can change things in positive ways, because things do need to change, and that's why we continue to do the show, is because changes need to happen, and maybe this is something that can spark change. So hopefully we can inspire something in those of you that are watching the show, and maybe you'll be part of the difference as well. And if we get enough people being part of the difference making, then we will make a difference. In any case, we just had an amazing 420 in the rain. There's been a number of different developments, as we've talked about on the shows just previously, about a meeting with the federal health minister, which hasn't gone any farther yet, by the way. I'm still waiting to hear back from these people. The ball is sort of in their court, but I'm going to be nudging them as we move forward. Also with Health Canada, today marks 1 month since we filed our response to their intent to deny our application for a special exemption or a license to do with providing low barrier access to cannabinoids for a number of different reasons, but primarily in this case with regards to what we're doing and what our application is mostly about, is in helping people get off of the high dose using the high dose edibles to get off of the hard drugs that are causing and at the root of this health epidemic that we're having, or overdose epidemic that we're having here. So I don't know if anybody at Health Canada has read our response at this point, but so far there's been no communication back to us about that. It is completely outrageous. Outrageous is a word, but maybe the better application of the word is to say that, myself and my colleagues are outraged that we continue to have to wait for some sort of government support in what we're doing here in responding to this healthcare emergency. This is exposing the corruption at the highest levels of our federal government. Lisa Lapointe, the head coroner or chief coroner of British Columbia, in the past week or so said at a conference of BC municipalities that organized crime has infiltrated the highest levels of our federal government. And we're here to say that, that's exactly what has to be going on. And nothing else would make any sense at all. We're faced with a public health emergency where people are dying because they're addicted to the opioids and other drugs, with the inability to escape that addiction through normal means, with treatment centers being jammed up and hardly available, and rehab being hard to get and ineffective at best. And us offering what is for sure the best harm reduction strategy, the best way to get people off of those drugs, the best way to give people an alternative so they don't get onto those drugs in the first place. And it is so well demonstrated by what we've done here. It's so well documented, so well punctuated by all of the different studies that have been done by, peer-reviewed studies that are done in medical journals by doctors and scientists and researchers who have come to the same conclusions as what we have here quite quickly. And that is that high-dose edibles has the power, when used properly, to assist people in getting off of those drugs and getting through that withdrawal stage that is the big barrier to quitting those drugs. So we've demonstrated this for over 6 years with hundreds of members, bona fide members, people that, names and faces that get put to the stories of how they've used cannabis to now no longer use those other drugs. And hundreds more that access us every day that aren't part of the membership, that are also using it for the same purposes and, and reporting the same things to us. Where is the government in all of this? This is a public health emergency. This is when the government needs to step up. And yet we get nothing from them. They've not come to visit us even once. They've never come to interview any of the people that we're helping at all, ever. They wait until we prompt them, and then they send back dribble and excuses and delays and no dialogue. My phone number is right there on our application. They could phone me up. They could ask me questions. They could determine that what we're doing is doing a substantial amount of good, and then they could ask me, how can we help you do this better? But there's been none of that dialogue whatsoever. I've asked for it. The only dialogue we had was over 2 years ago in December, about 3 months after we'd filed our application with Health Canada, where we had a meeting over the telephone with my lawyer at the time and with Health Canada officials, where the first thing they said was they were sorry it had taken so long at that point. Well, at least they recognized that then. And they went on to say that they'd likely have the licenses figured out in early January, but it was a bit complicated. They said if they allow us to have such a license or an exemption, then they'd have to likely do that for other places that would like to do the same thing in other areas of Canada, as if that was a bad thing. But that was the only dialogue we've had with them. We sent them scientific article after scientific article showing the evidence that cannabis works for this, that's a safe way that many people can find effective in assisting them through withdrawal, to the point where my lawyer said, we're not going to bother sending them anymore. There's no point. That part of it's already a given and proven. And so we continue to wait. And then they come up a year ago with this intent to deny, without any dialogue of any sort, like I say, where they say that they're not going to give us a license to continue what we're doing because all of our supply is not legal. Then they said that there's another good reason as well. And that is that full-grown adult Canadian human beings aren't capable of making proper decisions for themselves about high-dose cannabis edibles. They need to have a doctor going along with those and supporting those decisions to use high-dose edibles. We answered both of those questions quite succinctly, I thought. My lawyer at the time submitted our response to them. That was on September 2nd of last year. And then we waited several months until March of this year without hearing anything back from them. And then they resent their intent to deny. I mean, not a complete duplicate just sent again, but another one with the same reasons stated in the same language without any adjustments or recognition of what we had put forward as reasons why we should be able to have licensed producers supply us with cannabis, or we should have our producers licensed so that would be legal and regulated, and on other avenues as well, where we could have all legal supply if they would consult with us and make some decisions about what is and isn't allowed here and there, with an eye to helping us get it done, right? Because the bottom line is we need to keep doing what we're doing, and they need to help us get it done. But there's been none of that. None of that. So, sent them back another response. Sent that off, like I said, 1 month ago today. I read it on the show. If people want to go back and see 3 or 4 episodes ago, before I sent it to Health Canada, I read out what I was going to send to them, and pretty much what I sent or what I read is what I sent. And it really does express the urgency of the situation. That this is all life and death here. Every day that they delay is another day when we've been limited to the abilities that we have working out of an RV, because that's where we're operating from, because they won't provide us with a license yet to allow us to have a storefront. So with no storefront to operate from and an RV with all of its limitations, we do the best we can. And we actually do a phenomenal amount of good with what we're doing here. But it could be better. And that's the point. That we should have the RV as an outreach vehicle. We should have a storefront as our main area of operation. We should have a couple of other branch franchises around somewheres in the neighborhood because it needs to be really easily available to people. And then we could help more people. We could find more people that we could help escape addiction. It could be a bigger thing amongst those people that are stuck and struggling with addiction, where it's just the talk of the town that, hey man, you can get off this stuff. You just got to go down to your local low-barrier cannabis store, get yourself some high-dose edibles, start low, go slow, and if you do it right, you'll find that right dosage that'll help you get through those 4 or 5 days of hell. And on the other side, there's cannabis edibles and cannabis concentrates and things that will not kill you and things that will better your life. Just Google the endocannabinoid system to find out all the other health benefits that are available to people that would be using cannabis instead of using the other drugs that they're currently addicted to. So it's really outrageous, and we are outraged that this very time-sensitive life and death issue is being ignored and sidetracked by Health Canada with issues that aren't important, overriding issues that are important about the very lives of people that are struggling right now, and in many cases no fault of their own, like as if that should be a worry anyway, is whose fault it is. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. But I'll tell you, a lot of the blame has to be put at the feet of the federal government and the medical industrial complex and the pharmaceutical industrial complex that have used their vast resources and leverage to maintain or instill and maintain policies on the governmental level enforced with government forces and tax dollars that protect those industries. And in the end result is what we have going on with all of the poverty and the homelessness and the drug addiction. All can be traced back to government policies that protect the rich and don't give a damn about the poor. And I'll put to you that is the opposite of what governments should be all about. The rich can look after themselves. In fact, they're the ones that we need to have a little bit of protection from for the rest of us, because some of the rich will use their resources to do things that would exploit average people that are in positions of not power, and they can be taken advantage of. That's what governments should be for, is to protect the poor people, protect the vulnerable people, to step in when things are tough and when people need help. Not to maintain policy stances that are there obviously just to protect the financial interests of investors and shareholders and stockholders and people that make money off of certain policies that have enough leverage to be able to sway the day with who the government is and what the government does. This is corruption, and it's causing a great amount of harm. Someone said that they wanted me to not talk about government corruption on this show. Like, let's just have one show of only talking about nice things, I can't do it. I just can't do it. It's not my life. It's not what I know. I mean, I can talk to you about nice things, and I think we do try to have a little bit of balance in the show, a little bit of leverage as far as, getting some levity in there and talking about all kinds of different things. And we do explore a lot of that stuff on the show. But to ignore the gross oppression of this huge demographic of people that find themselves on the wrong side of a paycheck, and how they're targeted by government policies, they become the fodder and the scapegoats for policies and ways of governing, where they can blame those people for policies that take away the rights of the other people. And that scapegoating and stigmatization that happens, and all of the oppression that happens, and all of this other stuff, we cannot ignore, and I will not ignore. And I'm going to keep talking about it show after show after show until we get substantial change that makes me feel secure enough that we can just have a show all day, all week long, or the whole show, all about something frivolous and nice, and we'll talk about euphoria and THC and how much we love cannabis and all those sorts of things. But until we're free as human beings and until these policies are addressed, and as long as people are suffering the way that they are, and I'm right in the middle of it, I'm not going to ignore it. So we will try to, have some balance in the way that we talk about things and in the things that we talk about during the course of the show. But I do have to talk about the corruption that's going on here, that's handcuffing us, making criminals out of us, allowing people to die and suffer with the resistance on the part of the federal government to just put a signature on a piece of paper to say, all right, CSP, you can keep doing what you're doing. We support you. You're not going to get arrested. You can get a bank account. You can fundraise. You can reach more people. You can have other outlets. All of that kind of stuff. I can't not complain about it and continue to expose it until that happens. I really hope it happens. I hope that this is the last show I have to do where I have to tell you just how corrupt your government is and what that means with respect to the actual human tragedy that's here where we are on the front lines of this public health emergency. So I got to talk about it. There are other things going on, and in fact, it's all related, of course. Federal government was supposed to have a review of the Cannabis Act and the regulations surrounding it no more than 3 years after they were put into effect. It's now closing in on 4 years, and there's still no movement along those lines. The cannabis businesses that are involved in this have been lobbying for a long time to have a session of getting together and having dialogue with government about what to do about the regulations that make it extremely unfair to cannabis businesses as compared to other businesses in the marketplace. 13 months ago, the federal government announced that they were going to have such a consultation, and they were putting together this framework for coming up with strategies for retail sales. And it's 13 months later, and really nothing has happened on that front. It was handed to a government department that really was surprised to get it in the first place and has done nothing with it since. Meanwhile, cannabis businesses are suffering, many of them going bankrupt, losing money in large amounts. It's what's the name? Entourage Health, for example, lost $90 million last year. They're somewhat optimistic about the future because they've had some large investments come along to help get them through the next few years of declining sales and declining revenues. It's such a disaster going on with legalization that this is what's to show for it. A federal government that doesn't care, and in fact probably cares a lot about just not getting it done, leaving it as best they can the way that it is, because the way that it is there to support the people that want to make a bunch of money off of everybody else on cannabis. It is 4:19, so I got 1 minute, you got 1 minute. Roll them if you don't have them already rolled. Fill your pipe. We're going to imbibe in some of the sacred herb in moments from now. So, yeah, there's a lot to be done on the cannabis front. There's a lot to protest yet. The legalization that we have been fighting for is not what we have, so stop saying that we should all just stop our protesting and be happy that we achieved our goals and we have legalization. This is legalization by the rich, for the rich, at the exclusion of the people that need it the most. The ones that should be protected by governments and by all of us are the ones that are left struggling, kicked right under the bus, and not able to access easily that which they need. So there you go. Join the team. Let's go out and have a good Cannabis Day coming up July 1st. And we'll talk more about that coming right up. But if it's 420 and it must be, then that means, Wells
is here.
Wells is in the studio, of course.
Mr. Wells. There's Mr. Manson.
I use the term studio very loosely.
I was going to call you Manson.
Nope.
But Magnuson.
Magnuson. I had nothing to do.
I forgot to turn the camera.
Oh, see.
That's what happens when you smoke cannabis, right?
There you go.
There we go. That's better.
I think you need a little more than that.
No, we're good.
Oh, I see, because it moves in a delay.
It
was a delay. It didn't
move. Always a delay.
It didn't move much, eh? I thought, no, you didn't move it enough.
I can see what it looks like there before the delay. Yes. All right, so what are we smoking today?
Well, I've got my regular blend of some of the Healing Wave, the best products, and we are supported by many good people who know how to grow the cannabis plant. So
yep, me too.
We have many good products. And lately, I've been infusing my cannabis that I grind up from all these different strains with some really nice bubble hash.
Oh, nice.
We got some good bubble hash here.
So I infuse mine with shatter, you do yours with bubble hash.
I've been doing it with bubble hash. I've always liked bubble hash, and mixed in with a little bit of weed in a joint.
It tastes really good, doesn't it?
Tastes good and provides the proper effect.
This is where it all starts. You know, the bubble hash, and then you'll add some honey oil, maybe some shatter.
Yeah. I'm too old for anything to be starting.
You're never too old.
Wow,
But
I've been along this journey. I've been smoking weed since I was 15. I'm 66 now, so it's 51 years.
3 years more than
so I'm not starting anything. This is all still a continued evolution of my cannabis smoking. But yeah, because I like the bubble hash. And not that I need to smoke less weed, but I would like to smoke less weed. And if I infuse it with a bit of bubble hash, then I don't have to smoke so much.
Exactly, because you're getting more medicated, right?
A couple of puffs
now
sound good.
Now you have the dabs, and one dab will do you.
It does. Well, not the dab. No. I'm not dabbing.
That's what. Okay, remember.
You think I might, and I might. Who knows?
You never know.
You don't know how the
evolution. If you want to do
of
less smoking, then that's the only way to go, because that's a vapor. It's not a smoke.
I don't plan
it's way better for your lungs than smoking that.
I know.
Right. So
and
you get medicated longer.
So yeah, I don't plan this stuff. I didn't decide. Hey, I'm going to wait until I'm 66, and then I'm going to start mixing in some bubble hash, and then I'm going to wait until I'm like 68 years old, then I'm going to start dabbing once in a while. I don't plan any of this stuff.
Now, you know that dabbing is also, you can do in a hotel room where you can't smoke a joint in a hotel room. You can do dabs in a hotel room and they will never know. But if you smoke a joint in a hotel room, everybody knows. Right?
Yeah.
It's out in the hallway, right? So, yeah, dabs have definitely been a good bump up. You get medicated longer. You don't smell like a joint when you're around other people, which some people get offended by, right? So,
and then there's the pens. I kind of like the pens too.
Yeah, the pens are good. Yeah, I forgot to bring mine too.
I've smoked pens in restaurants and movie theaters and other things like that. Never an issue at all, for sure. I don't mind.
Because it doesn't smell like pot, right? You can have strawberry flavored. You can have
and thankfully, there's people puffing on the cigarette, the e-cigs all over the place
you don't
too.
know the difference.
Who knows which is which? You know, I always want to ask people. I see them smoking on some sort of an e-cigarette. I'm like, is that weed in there, or is that just tobacco?
I think those guys that smoke it in the car because they let out this big puff of smoke. So
much
smoke doesn't look so bad. It's like, now we don't know if it's cannabis or if it's an e-vape, man. So thank you to all those e-vape guys.
Such a strange thing, this whole ordeal here, where we have to compare ourselves and compete with those people that smoke tobacco, like as if the tobacco is the stuff you should smoke. You're allowed to smoke. Government makes its money off of that, and it's available everywhere. And cannabis is like, well, you got to try to hide that. So it's okay that you're smoking tobacco in there.
You can smoke a cigarette while you're driving. You just can't smoke a joint while you're driving. Right?
So you can't. And all of it, of course, as we've said numerous times, makes no sense, but it makes a lot of money for a bunch of people. So that's why things happen the way that they do. Just follow the money, and it usually makes a lot more sense. What have we got? We got the Indigenous fellow from Vernon, who has launched a lawsuit now against the provincial government, I believe.
Oh, really?
But it might be the federal government. For constitutional challenge about the unconstitutionality of their sales and distribution policies that they have.
Nothing for medical people.
And I think it's about barriers and things like that as well.
That's good.
That's one of the battlegrounds with this legalization is the indigenous lands.
Well, that's a tort.
And the rights that people have.
Isn't that what he's doing? Is a constitutional tort?
Well, if it's a suit, it's probably a tort. Right? If you're claiming damages, then that's a tort. And I think that's a great idea, and there should be a lot more of that.
I wish I could do it. But they want $10,000 in order to start it with.
Who wants $10,000? Oh, Kurt.
Yeah, wants $10,000 off, and he wants to retain it.
Consult with some legal friends of mine about getting it done without that type of.
I've been waiting over 4 years. I had to write him another email today saying I'm getting really pissed off. They're not even telling me what I can do in order to make this go faster. Just it's in process. Yeah. Upper management knows. That's all I get. So today I swear. So, well, you shouldn't swear. I said, well, it took me 4 years to swear. So hold on.
Somebody needs to swear.
Yeah. After 4 years, right? So.
Yeah, and then Ted Smith also last Tuesday launched his lawsuit against the provincial government and the CSU. Also on grounds of unconstitutionality with respect to what they're doing with the cannabis act and their own provincial laws that are all overlapping and on top of the Cannabis Act. I think that they should have a similar thing go on in Quebec as well.
Yeah.
Because those people there are really being oppressed by...
You can't even grow plants in Alberta, I just found out.
Oh,
my
really?
landlord is selling his house, he's moving to Alberta, he says you can't grow 4 plants in Alberta.
I see. No, it's terrible.
I know, eh?
You know.
It's crazy.
For what?
Just
Under what?
Quebec.
Under what?
And Manitoba too.
And no justification, of course. I mean, you look into that and you think about all the other plants that people can grow in their homes.
Well, there's justification. You gotta go back there. The justification is if you ain't growing it, you're gonna be buying it from our stores.
Yeah, sure.
Okay?
Yeah,
That's a justification.
That's not allowed to be. That's
right?
not justification.
Well, whatever.
There's a word for that.
That's how they justify it.
Cornering, monopolizing the marketplace, running a protection racket. Those are some of the words for something like that. You know? And it's supposed to be a free country. These are supposed to be public servants. And they're going to tell you can't grow one particular plant.
Yeah.
And if you do, you can only grow 4 of them. I mean, who are these people? I mean, you know, and under what justification? What is their justification? They don't really give you any at all.
They just...
You know, the plant's dangerous to have around children. Well, no, it's not. You're allowed to have 4 of them in most provinces. And the federal government says you can have 4 of them. So having plants in your home apparently is not any threat to children. And in fact, if you want to look at what plants people normally grow inside of their houses, about 100 different house plants. Yeah. You know, your baby gets in and starts chewing on some of those plants, and they could die and get really, really sick, and all the rest of the stuff that happens because those plants are almost all of them quite poisonous.
Yeah.
But the cannabis plant is not.
Yeah.
So where is there any justification for only allowing 4 plants? Maybe because they think you're going to start to sell it. Well, so what? So what? I mean, do they tell you how many tomatoes you can grow and whether or not you can have your kid out in the front yard with a little box and a stand with some tomatoes there, or going door to door in the neighborhood? You know, we grew too many tomatoes this year, we'd like to sell. Is that an issue for government? You know, is there a reason why government would need to get in there and say, oh, no, you can't be like, you know, selling your tomatoes. Can't have your child become an entrepreneur and understand business. Man, I get so mad, you know. It is not the role of government to stifle business.
No.
It is the opposite. These are public servants. The public is who is engaged in business and commerce. It is the role of government to facilitate business and commerce. So, you know, it's similar to the pot rallies where they won't give us a permit.
With that previous person that used to be on the show, do you think it was the role of government to shut him down? Because they did, right? Within a day, he was busted.
Yeah,
right.
We're going to go there.
Oh, I'm just asking you. You know, you brought up the role of government.
Was it the role of government to do that?
Yeah, because Pierre Poilievre put a YouTube video out saying "Wow" with him in it. So obviously Ottawa knew about it real quick.
It should not be the role of government to do that, but because of this extremely twisted and perverted structure that we have of a society here, because of all of these government laws and policies and the problems that have been created as a result of it.
He's opposite to what you're trying to do.
I mean, he knew that they were going to come and arrest him for that, and he said that he hoped that would happen because he wants to pursue it in the courts. Yeah. They're going to stop that from happening, but that's going to happen only because of what the other things they don't allow are going on. Yeah. So they're the ones that are creating the fertile ground for that type of a protest to pop up and happen. Yeah. And it's not just what happened with that. It's you know, there's other groups in the neighborhood that have been doing similar things and trying to do that as well.
So there's a clean source of.
And that's the thing is they want to have a clean supply as an answer. Yeah. So somebody needs to do that.
Have to go to a doctor to get it or something.
Yeah, you can't. It has to be low barrier.
Yeah.
It has to be with the proper checks and balances as best you can do when dealing with those types of dangerous substances. So there obviously needs to be regulations and there needs to be restrictions, but they need to be in line with what's reasonable. And the bottom line, and it's all about bottom lines here, the bottom line there is that you can't allow for the unregulated marketplace to be viable and in existence because your regulations are so strict that people aren't going to go by them. They're going to go to the underground marketplace. If these things are truly dangerous, then they need to be dispensed in ways where people are getting access to proper healthcare professionals, proper information, The minimal regulations could easily, for many of the more harsher substances, involve a 30-minute orientation or something like that, where at least they know you've seen this video about what can happen if used improperly, and talk about it, because most people are not really trying to hurt themselves.
No,
they're trying to help themselves.
I think they should help
or trying to have a great experience.
Yeah, not just give them clean supplies. I hear some more, right?
Exactly.
They should help them get off, right? And
it's a serious topic.
Cannabis can help them with that, right?
You're absolutely right. It's a serious topic. It needs to be taken seriously by governments. That if it's going to be regulated and available, which it needs to be, because if it's not, it is anyway. It's going to be available down here on the sidewalks and behind dumpsters and the rest of it. That if the government's going to take control of that availability, they need to spend some time and some effort to make sure that there's proper ways to make sure people are properly educated, mostly about what it is that they're trying to access and why. Yeah. And all the proper services for people who would say, well, I need to access that because I've been using it for years and I can't stop using it. Yeah. Because
but now we found a way that they can. Through cannabis edibles.
Exactly.
So now there is a door open for them if the government would just embrace it and say, okay, well, we can get you off this. If you want to be off it, we can put you on down some high dose edibles and we'll get you down the road, right? Then you say after a week, if you make it through the first week, then you pretty much got it under your belt and you can continue on with your life.
No, I'm not a fan of prohibition.
No.
I certainly am not a fan of prohibition. It needs to be stopped. It's not the role of government to be interfering with human free citizens and what substances they want to ingest for themselves. If you're not suicidal and if you're not antisocial in a violent behavioral way, then really it's not their business. If there's a problem in society with people who are misusing things and it's causing problems for those people, but it's not violence in society, it's not suicidal, slow suicide. But, for that, there needs to be proper education campaigns. If that's what's going on, then the government needs to find creative, ways of enlightening people about ways out, about different ways of using, about how to spot whatever is abuse. There's a whole bunch of different aspects of it. But that's not the course that they've taken. They've taken the course of saying, well, there's lots of government drugs like alcohol and pharmaceuticals and commercial tobacco, and you can help yourself to all of those and have at it. And those other drugs are all bad, and we're just going to punish you if we find you with them, and we're going to make you a criminal for having them, and we're going to treat you like you're not a free, independent citizen, but you're some sort of a real, oppressed slave, and that's not what's okay. So, it's the approach that's been wrong for so long, and they need to just stop it. They need to apologize for what they've done and say we're going to have a real big rethink about all of this stuff. And then, don't just, like you say, make it available at drugstore, corner stores for anybody, but have a system of access that makes sense, that's reasonable, that comes with all those other options and avenues to do other things.
It'd be so nice if doctors could say, okay, I'm going to put you on some painkillers, but when we're done with this, we'll be able to get you off with some high-dose edibles and you won't have to continue to
Sure, or if the high-dose edibles aren't something that works for the person as the primary painkiller, because high-dose edibles really have the power to do just about everything that any of those high-powered painkillers can do. The smoked cannabis doesn't. You can't smoke too much of it. By the time you smoke 3 good joints, the 4th one isn't going to do you any better.
True.
But the edibles you can eat until you're completely knocked right out for days. So the edibles do have the power, the right dosage, the right way. And there's many different ways to apply it too. There's pills, there's suppositories, there's topicals, there's many different ways that you can apply cannabinoids in ways that will address the pain, probably at least as effectively as just about anything else you would want. But not for everybody, because everybody's different, and there are people out there who are intolerant to cannabinoids. I've met them. I don't understand it, but I'm no scientist.
Because that's an opposite to everything, no matter what in the world. There's always somebody who's going to be different, right?
Absolutely. So for those people, their option would probably be an opioid or some other thing. Maybe it would be hypnosis. Maybe these things all need to be available. We have been under the thumb of the pharmaceutical, medical, industrial complex for many decades now, and there really isn't much options within that. I mean, they're not nutritionalists. They're not meditationalists.
No.
They have their one avenue of attack on whatever's not right with a human being, and it all involves pills that they make huge markup on, and that's their game.
Yeah.
So there needs to be these other options out there that we're not forced into having a doctor to go to do what he says, and you can't access this without a doctor saying it's okay. I mean, these people are part of a big drug gang, and they shouldn't be the primary gatekeepers of what your options are when you're trying to help yourself, for sure.
Seems like they don't want you to live too long. They'll just keep giving you more and more and more, right?
Yeah. I mean, you try to make sense of it all, and you realize that it's not really about anything except making money.
And if you want to eat healthy and all that stuff, you got to pay more for it.
You got to pay more,
right?
You do.
Yeah.
Those things are out there. And I've kind of been learning this recently, that there are a lot of options out there for people who have money.
Yep.
There's stores that have really fancy things. There's all kinds of fancy stuff, health products and things. But they're all pretty damn pricey for sure.
Yeah.
I've been using the Greens Plus stuff. It's a supplement that you add to smoothies or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's really, really good. It's really, really powerful. But they want like $70 for one fairly small container.
Really, Wow.
Yeah. So, that's out of the price range of most of the people, for sure.
Especially if you're in medical distress.
Yeah, and if you're in medical distress, so you've got chronic something going on for a long time, you probably aren't able to work or, gather an income.
Yeah, so where do you get $70?
So yeah, where are you going to get that extra $70 to last a month or so to take this supplement?
Yeah.
But for those people that have resources, there are ways. It's a wonderful modern world out there. There's a huge...
It's always been that way. If you got money, you live longer, I guess. Or you don't. They're doing more stupid
and maybe now the choices that you have are more realistic than before. If you had money before, you could gather around the traveling snake oil salesman that came into town there, and he had his famous elixir, and get it here, get it now, won't be here tomorrow, folks, And those people with money would pony it all up there and take it. And it was usually cannabis based, so it really actually was something. But lots of times it wasn't.
From the 1930s in there too, right?
They had, speaking of that, they had quite the expose recently on CKNW about CocaCola.
Oh yeah.
And
how
it pulled off what it pulled off.
Yeah.
The Coca-Cola was what its name says. I mean, it was a cola made out of coca.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was the refreshing part was the energy that it would give you. Yeah. Right.
And so they managed to get the federal government in the U.S. to allow them to be exempt from other laws, and to they took the active cocaine ingredient out of Coca-Cola. They did that on their own pretty quick. They could see what was coming with that. It was being used to put down the black race, and so they wanted to be out of that, but they still needed to have that coca flavor.
Yeah.
And so they managed to, it's just crazy how they managed to influence the federal government to give them financial breaks and opportunities that certainly weren't there for anybody else. They ended up so much money, so much leverage that they could use to continue to have that type of influence.
It's a
quite
big
a story.
Company.
Yeah, one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah, along with McDonald's, and Pepsi,
and they are still using large amounts of the coca plant, where they are allowed to import it and remove the active cocaine ingredient out of it, and then they get to sell a whole bunch of that cocaine to the dentistry profession to use as anesthetics, and other medical applications for the cocaine. By federal law, they can only sell 1/3 of what they extract, and the other 2/3 has to be destroyed.
Oh wow!
And they've had that deal going on for a long time.
Wow!
They were going to grow it domestically,
yeah.
Rather than get the exemptions to have it imported.
Yeah.
So Hawaii, a big portion of Hawaii, was going to be devoted to growing coca.
Wow.
But there was some sort of a parasite that they couldn't defeat, and that didn't allow them to do that.
Oh, wow.
What they're doing now, who knows? I don't know. Strange world. They're probably growing in underground bunkers or something.
I don't know. You never know.
I don't know. But the Coca-Cola company is involved in the sale of cocaine to the medical industry.
Yeah.
They process it and all the rest of it. Oh man, it's such a weird world we live in. And there's quite a history to cocaine, and I wanted to get up to speed on that before today's show, but I didn't get a chance. I had very busy last week.
Yeah.
But I'm going to prepare that for next week's show. just some of the cultural benefits and the benefits medicinally and otherwise that are experienced by the indigenous people in the areas that were growing coca for all these years in Peru and Colombia and what have you.
And they chew it in the fields and stuff like that.
And
right?
how it helps them, the nutrition that they get out of it, it's like drinking a cup of coffee to give you energy in the morning to get you going to work and stuff like that. It's no different than that, except it's more of a natural thing to do probably, and it's probably less harmful than is the coffee. And we're not talking about people using cocaine, which is a highly addictive, concentrated form of the coca leaf. But the coca leaf itself has these properties that do provide some energy and do provide nutrition and other things too for people living in high altitudes. And so anyway, I'm not as up to speed on it all as I want to be, and I'm going to try to do that too.
People that live up in the high altitudes and chew the stuff in the fields and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then to have the U.S. government come along and decide to criminalize it globally, and how that impacted these communities, and the suffering, the death that's occurred because of it, and all sorts of bad things have happened as a result of, once again, U.S. policy, or it's more corporate policy than it is U.S. The U.S. gets blamed for it because these corporations use the U.S. government to have their way and get what they want. But it's the corporatists, the same people that were the kings and the queens and the pharaohs and the dictators and all those rich people that forever have had control over everybody. They still do. And they're the ones who are orchestrating this type of mayhem around the world with respect to resources and government policies on drugs and other things.
You know all those salt beds that are out in Saskatchewan, when you're driving and it's flat with all that white salt
stagnant lakes?
Yep. There's one in Utah, and they're finding out that area there is full of lithium. No, is it? Did they make the...
Your story,
lithium?
I don't know.
No,
I didn't hear it.
Whatever they make the microchips from.
Right? Probably lithium. That's using the batteries anyway.
Yeah, whenever they make microchips, what do they do in Taiwan? Is it lithium? It's not lithium. It's not.
You got to talk to the experts.
I'm stoned. I can't think of the word. But anyways,
we're the expert on a few things.
We need it for all our electronic stuff, our computers, our cars, and all that.
And it's in those dried up lakes or those.
Apparently, so now these ghost towns that have no work and stuff like that. That was on 60 Minutes.
Now they're going to harvest all this stuff out of these dried lakes?
Underneath these lakes.
Wow.
Yeah, they're going to be able to make our own domestic instead of having to go to Taiwan and make these microchips. Huh?
We can have our own child slave labor?
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, they're going to make these towns, pretty profitable because...
Nice. Well, that's always good, Find something underground that makes money, I guess is a good thing, probably.
Yeah.
I saw there was a copper mining town in British Columbia that back at the turn of the century, by 1906, they had pretty much exhausted most of the copper from the area that they were mining in it. But they had dug all these tunnels that went all around and all underneath all the buildings that they had in the main little town area there. And by 1906, the tunnels were collapsing, and the buildings were sinking and falling into the holes and stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
Ah, cannabis.
Yeah, with bubble hash.
With bubble.
It's got bubble hash. Well, we were supposed to have some guests. I wonder what happened to them.
You should be walking through the door anytime, shouldn't you?
Yeah, they're a little bit behind. Should I go maybe take a look?
We'll give them more time. It doesn't matter. Maybe they don't want to come on now.
Oh, I put them in the title. They got to be on.
Oh, they got to be on. Well, we could just. You want to come on? All three of them. You brought me a book.
You could just read this little part here.
Sure. So Joe Pepper.
Yeah.
Joe Pepper in studio here has brought me a book. Super Cooperators. There you go. And the caption she wants me to read is Altruism, Evolution, and Why We Need Each Other to Succeed. That's what I keep preaching all the time, is that this is about reaching critical mass, that we've got a big problem going on here because of a few elite members of our society, financially elite, they're not elite in any other way in my opinion, they're parasites for the most part, unethical people, but this small group of unethical people are able to have their way with the masses of people with policies and governance that isn't sufficiently objected to be able to stop it. And we can stop it. We have the numbers to stop it if we want to. We can definitely make things happen with our pocketbooks and our choices that we make. But we just need to get more people involved, and that's the problem. And when you get more people involved, then it's easier to get more people involved, and then eventually you get what you call critical mass.
Yeah.
Critical mass is a very, very interesting phenomena, you know. It really is. It's that, well, it's illustrated in a book called The 100th Monkey, for example. So there were small islands that were isolated from each other that had populations of monkeys on them, and researchers were experimenting and finding out, you know, these things. And so the experiment is that they taught one young monkey how to wash the fruit before consuming it, because they would get the fruit and they would smash it with rocks to get it open, and it would be in the sand and dirt, and then they would just pick it up and eat it.
Yeah.
So they taught this one young monkey to go down to the edge of the water and wash the fruit first and then eat it.
Yeah.
And then they sat back and watched. So that young monkey taught his mom.
Yeah.
And the mom taught the other siblings. And then the next monkey family got in on it as well.
Yeah.
And pretty soon there was like 100 of the 1,000 or so monkeys in the colony
Down by
that
the
were
water.
going down washing their fruit.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, they were all doing it.
Oh, really?
The whole colony got it by that
Oh,
time. I guess
wow.
they'd say, what are all those people doing down there by the
Yeah,
water?
oh,
Well, they're
okay.
washing their fruit. You know, it seems to taste a lot better without the dirt. So I don't know, but they all got it after about the 100th monkey. But that's not the phenomenal part about it. I mean, that makes sense. You
The
can see
phenomenal part is monkey see, monkey do. It's right.
Well,
You know.
the phenomenal part is monkey didn't see, but monkey still did.
Yeah.
Because on the other side of this island was another colony of monkeys that were, you know, separated from this one here. But that morning, when all of the monkeys in this colony were now doing that same wash their fruit procedure, so did the monkeys in the other colony on the other side of the island. It was like somehow osmosis or something.
Oh,
you know,
the energy,
and this is why I call it a phenomenon. It's a real phenomenon that there's this critical mass.
Yeah.
That it's the same in human populations.
Yeah.
When there's a certain percentage of people that get a certain thing, everybody gets it.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, now everybody knows.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that works or how that works. There's a lot of things in life that are strange like that,
So
you
somehow
know.
the monkeys on the other side of the island.
Yeah, all
figured it
serious.
out,
And there's a book on it called The 100th Monkey. You can
Wow.
look that up, and it's a very interesting tale.
And they're not sure that some monkey didn't maybe just go rogue.
Well, maybe
over
it
there.
did, I don't
And they
know.
Show them what to do, and then they all learned it too.
Probably.
You're right, 'cause
Maybe.
we have
Yeah,
rogue
probably.
people,
I'm not.
rogue monkeys.
I'm not making a comment on whether it was done through airwaves or brainwaves,
yeah.
you know, or what. But there's a book about it, and you can read it. And critical mass is certainly a thing.
It is.
And you know how it is that everybody gets that knowledge within a short period of time. Once a certain percentage gets it, is, you know, hard to track. Maybe it is. You know, that everybody does make a phone call. Everybody does have it in their. You know, just like I said, when more people start doing it, then more people start doing it, and then it gets to be a thing. And then once it's a thing, everybody knows. You know, at least you know about the thing. So we're pushing for enough people to join us in trying to get limited, accountable, transparent public servants. That's the goal.
Is that what it is?
That's my goal, yeah.
Transparent public servants?
Yeah, that's my goal.
Oh, that's a mouthful.
That's what I'm looking for. If enough people get on that, you know, we can reach critical mass, and somehow we can force the issue and end up with public servants who really do only care about doing a good public service for those individual people that they're representing, instead of the corporations that they're going to reward them after the fact for allowing them to get access to the population, you know. So yeah, I don't know where Gary and Bridget are. Gary and Bridget were going to come and join us.
Gary and Bridget up there? No?
No.
Wow.
He was going to get a coffee or something, wasn't he?
Something like that. We're live.
I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
I didn't know what I was doing there, actually.
Hi, Dexter.
Hi. Hello.
Dexter, how you doing?
My bad. I was trying to be silent.
Yeah.
Well, you can't be silent when they see
Glenn
you.
was not about to allow that.
Yeah.
There's-
Look
There'll be no
at this CA. Who's that guy behind you?
there'll be no sneaking on and off the set when Glenn's around.
Yeah, there's
Come on, one
a
day,
producer
you know.
here, right?
That's
You
right.
gotta know, right?
A little high.
Can you sign the waiver when you're done, please?
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
Full name,
Yeah.
you know,
It would be-
surname, middle name, and given
Yeah.
name.
Are you guys joking? Yeah, sure. If you're serious, yes. If you're joking,
We're joking.
Do I have permission to use your image? State your name for the camera. Oh, cannabis.
I love it. I love my cannabis.
Super cooperators, you
I love the
see?
people who grow our
See
cannabis.
this is what Deb brought us here. Super cooperators.
Yep.
We just need to cooperate with each other.
Yep.
I
That's
saw the
it.
Dalai Lama.
Power of the people.
The Dalai Lama was speaking about religion.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he said it very well. It speaks for me, for sure. That his religion is kindness.
His is kindness.
Just be kind to one another all the time. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Random acts of kindness is ridiculous.
He
That's for people who
He
aren't
just got
kind
himself
most
into
of the
trouble,
time.
that guy.
Did he get in trouble?
Oh, yeah.
Here.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do now?
He kissed the boy.
He kissed the boy.
He did.
Oh,
and the media didn't think that was very appropriate. Or something about, something with his tongue or something like that. Yeah.
Oh dear.
So he apologized publicly and stuff
Oh,
like
man.
that. But yeah, there's.
Oh man.
No way.
Is there nothing sacred left?
I don't know.
You
I don't know.
it's
That's I just can see it's because
I
of
promise
religion.
you, I will
Yeah.
never.
You're supposed to be a religious person. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it was a child too. So.
We can only hope his intentions were good.
Well, yeah, no, there's apparently no intention. There was something to be blessed or by him or
Yeah,
something.
probably. Eh?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
weirdness though. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
The world is weird. It's getting
And you
weirder.
can never really know.
But then
eh?
when we were wearing long hair and they were calling our parents hippies, the world was weird to their parents too. So I think
It's
the
always
world's
been weird.
the world is always just going to be
Oh
weird.
man, I think the world has always been weird. Wherever, whenever you are throughout history, around the globe, life is always weird.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Yay!
You know.
I like weird decisions.
Well,
sometimes.
sure. I mean, you know,
if it wasn't weird, it might be just.
we're virgin, you know, on a whole other topic.
Okay, maybe next
And
week.
I'm not sure we should go there.
Yeah,
yet.
all right, let's do that next week.
Because we do have on our program notes this morning that we're going to have some guests on the show.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to introduce to Bridget and Gary, some good people that have been working
I'll
for a
go
while.
so you can use my seat. So.
Yeah, is that what you want to do?
Yeah, well, 'cause
Okay.
I don't think we have a third seat. So.
All right.
All right. We'll see you next week, my
Well,
friend.
pop back in later on.
Well, if
whatever you like to
there's
do.
time,
you know?
I'll be here. I'm the producer. I'm not
I
going
know
anywhere.
you're not going anywhere.
All right.
They don't know that though, because you're just going to disappear out of the shot, and then they don't know if you're still here or not.
Oh, I'm here.
You never know.
All right.
Glenn is always here. So, Gary and Bridget have been operating a cannabis substitution program in Newton. For how long has it been? Now, come on in, you two. Just to clarify, this is Gary and that's Bridget.
Hello.
Hi.
Well, we've been doing this on. I guess we started. When was that, Bridget?
I think it was the latter part of December.
Now, were you
2020.
doing stuff before this with helping people with food or anything like that?
No.
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 So, what inspired you to start doing what you're doing with sandwiches and weed and stuff?
Well, I used to cut through the back of our grocery store, and there was a bunch of people that were living homeless behind the back of the store under the trees.
Right.
And it was Christmas time, and I thought that a lot of people are out on the streets. They've lost contact with their family members, and I thought it would be a nice Christmas day to go out and bring like a little a turkey sandwich, maybe some chocolate, an orange, candy cane, that kind of thing, a little gift bag.
Yeah.
Just to remember, just to make them remember that they're not forgotten.
Very nice of you.
Maybe put even a little Christmas card inside, something nice,
Beautiful.
And so anyway, after that, it was a bunch of people at the time that thought, hey, this would be a great idea. They joined along, and they had a car. And at that time, we moved to a different location in the city. But initially, we ended up coming back to Newton because there were more resources in Wally at the time, and in other areas
Are
of
you
Surrey.
from Newton?
And Newton, yeah, and
That's your neighborhood.
Yeah, I actually graduated at Princess Margaret in 1987. So
Right.
yeah, I've been in Newton since off and on, since 1985.
I see.
Yeah.
Nice.
So anyway, so that's just why I thought, there was such a big demand, and the more we started, I started looking at the amount of people, there was a lot of demand there, and I thought maybe we should just keep it to Newton, because there wasn't a lot of resources, and there's not a
And
lot of food.
what were your plans? What were you giving out?
Well,
Just the things that you said there originally at Christmas time, or did it evolve into something more like food or sandwiches or what?
no, what ended up happening is we just thought we'd keep it really simple. On a weekly basis, it would be, just sandwiches, meat, cheese, good high quality. Like, we don't use, any no-name brand, anything. We give the best of the best.
Right.
We do Hellman's, we do, corned beef, roast beef, pastrami, not something you'd normally get when you're homeless.
So how often do you go out and do this?
We're right now, we were about 2 weeks ago, we were once a week, and now it looks like we're 3 days a week.
You're right off
So
the ride.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
I see.
And we make a bunch, and then over those initial 3 days, we go out, we hand out whatever supplies we have at the time.
Right.
So right now it's bananas, juice boxes, it is like a Nutri-Grain bar or a cookie of some sort, and then of course a meat and cheese sandwich.
Right.
So that's kind of
And
where we're
now
at.
you've also incorporated weed into this to some degree.
Yeah, and then what happened was the people, when we first started talking about this in December, were wanting to do this Cannabis Substitution Program, which I didn't know anything about at the time, but learning more and more about it over the last 4 or 5 months, and talking to the people on the street, it's really making a big difference.
Right.
So, with us feeding the people, because that's a need, the other need is the opiate crisis. This is a safer route, as far as I know, to come away from either like a methadone government program, a better quality weed. Apparently some of the weed available in the shops is not as good as what's being available now through this
Well, it would
program.
also be very expensive to go that route as well.
It's very expensive, and a lot of these people are limited income. Well, obviously they're homeless, they have nowhere to live, or they're basically, like one of the clients that we have now. I mean, he's a single dad with small children. He's not able to work because of mobility issues and or pain.
So let's talk about him for a moment here.
Yeah.
This is Chase, right?
Yeah, this is Chase. Yeah, Chase. Yeah.
And so, what's his situation? What's his physical limitations? What's going on?
Well, I mean, as you know, we all know what ALS is and what it does. It's such a crippling neurological disease that it usually, most people who get it, they get 5 years. An old friend of mine, Carl Watt, who's now passed away, he was a drummer, he was well known, in all musicians out there know who Carl Watt was.
Right.
And he used to play in a band called Osiris many years ago. He died of ALS. And so when I found out Chase first got it, of course, I never wanted to see him that way. So it wasn't really till I met you, and like we said, we were working with some other people, and what happened is he messaged me and he said, hey, can this person start helping us out? Because I can't really afford weed. Because, being on ALS, he has, heavy rent, and then after that, if he spends money on the weed, he can't eat.
Right.
He's got no food.
And there must be other costs associated with having that anyway.
Yeah.
For sure. And you say he has a young family?
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, he's not a single dad. He's with somebody, right? But he's at home, and they just, like, with the children and all the stuff they do, it's like there's not really anything really left, eh?
And he's confined to a wheelchair, I would imagine.
Well, most times he could, but this is the great thing, Neil. Because of cannabis products, all kinds, from smoking weed, he likes, the isolate, the crystal. It does wonders for him. Don't ask me why. That is what he really, he says, is big time. I mean, but he uses a lot of flour and stuff, so he does grow. But with with what we've been giving, the donations that you gave us too, Neil, it'll make it a lot easier. It's made it so easy where Chase is kind of like wanting to help somebody else out now. Neil, yeah. So no, he's not confined to a wheelchair because, like I said, the cannabis, he's up, he's walking.
Nice.
He doesn't like to really be in his wheelchair. His will to live is so strong.
Right.
So, but I mean, sometimes he's got to surrender to things, and that's why I like spending the time I do with him and that.
Right.
So
So a lot of what your focus is on helping him as well.
big time. Big time. And continuing asking the community to continue helping by donating to us. You can get a hold of Bridget. She administrates our page too, like Neil's page. We also have one, Cannabis Substitution Program Newton. You can find us on Facebook and get a hold of us there. There's also a Cannabis Substitution Program Surrey. We're not with the Surrey program. We're in Newton, just serving Newton.
And
Right?
so how do you, and so in Newton, the demographics are a little different, or the geography is a little different of where people hang out and where they are. It's a little harder to get to those people, I would imagine. Probably some around the rec center there and that little park and, you know, other places like that. So you guys are on foot doing this, right?
Yeah, we
So
are.
to interject in that. Okay, so basically when, it's usually early morning is when the most we can find people, because the bylaw officers are constantly moving them.
I see.
So where we think they're going to be one morning to the next may not be.
I see.
You know, because obviously they have a job to, clean things up and get, people to get them moving along and
Yeah,
stuff.
Surrey's got a strategy for dealing with the loitering people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so basically what it is we go out to where we think we would find most people, but if we go out, say, in the morning, that group of people would not even be the same people in the nighttime.
Right.
So they're constantly moving, and if you were in a car, you wouldn't be able to see them unless we were walking with a small little hand cart.
Right.
So we can actually go behind places.
And so it's been a few
See-
months now.
Yeah.
You've come to recognize a number of these people, I would imagine, and know them by name even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's a great thing, Amy, is the relationship. I mean, I wish you could convince more people, you can also come out and walk with us if you choose.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, no problem.
Yeah.
Just get a hold of Bridget or me and message us, or even Neil, right? You'll get a hold of us or hook
I'll
us
make
up.
it work.
Yeah, and because, unfortunately, before we could film a lot of the stuff I was doing with the Cannabis Substitution Program, Surrey, but because it's me and Bridget, we don't got no time to film it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's even been a couple people that work with you, like Ted.
Should
Ted
doc-
said he would come out and give
Yeah,
us
you
a
should
hand.
document a little bit of it,
Yeah.
picture here or there or
Yeah.
something like that, just to document
Yeah.
it. But you're posting what you're doing. I see your posts,
Yeah.
on Facebook, so that's documented.
Yeah,
right there.
exactly.
So you are taking some
Yeah.
pictures of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, so to see it firsthand, so that my hope, Neil, is that this would expand, to White Rock, or other people would use Neil's program and expand this so that we could put pressure on the government and on our mayors, because the mayors do have a right to kibosh everything. And then
there's a chapter in Halifax, right?
yes, exactly.
I mean, Chris has been doing fantastic work out there. I mean, he must be at over 4 years now with him and his group of volunteers. And the same thing every week is there's a long lineup of people that forms, and they have a whole bunch of stuff that they give to all these people.
Nice.
It's similar to what we experienced here. A lot of very grateful people and what have you. And I saw that Chris's post after yesterday's event, his giveaway event, it happens every Monday. Somebody in the lineup that was lining up early, and they were just getting things set up, and he yelled out to Chris, "We love you." And Chris yelled back, "Yeah, well, I love you too." And the guy said, "Well, you must, because you show up here every morning, or every week without fail, and do this for us." And Chris is like, "Yep, that's what's going on. I care about you people. And you guys too must have, you've obviously got some soft spot in your heart for people that are struggling at Christmas time, and that's what kind of prompted all this. But it goes deeper than that as well. I mean, you're finding a way to maybe give back. I mean, what's your story as far as why you care like you do about what's going on there?"
Well, Neil, like for me, I mean, I come from a real decent family, and for me, I became a cocaine addict, and I mean, I lost my first wife, kids, because of a cocaine addiction, and I actually ended up down here for almost 2 years by choice, and what drug addiction can do.
Yeah,
You see
it makes you think that that's the right choice.
Yeah, and you see it every day being down here, right? And what it's like. I mean, I was down here, and I got out of here in it was 2003. But I mean, I didn't stop. I just
20 years.
Yeah, I didn't stop. I kept using for a little longer, but I didn't get back down here, right? So I thought I was still managing for a while, but I finally ended up stopping in 2009 in August.
Right.
And I haven't used since. And then what happened is, through that process, it was about 2000 and I would say 12. I was going through stuff, and
the world was going to end.
Yeah, well, I was just going through a bunch of stuff, Neil, and I had an A&D counselor suggest medical marijuana.
Right, and that's pretty powerful right there.
Yeah.
That you had a counselor say, maybe you should try this. Right?
Yeah, and so I did, and I really never looked back, Neil.
Right.
So I mean, when Justin was convincing everybody, hey, vote for me, I'll let you smoke weed, I really didn't need to, Neil. I was a medical patient, so I kind of thought, because of his dad, he going to just screw this all up, which, you know, we all know he did. And,
So far, so much, yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's my story. Now, that's why it's like, I mean, down here we've got lots of resources, as you know. You got the Mission Gospel, lots of food down here.
Yeah.
And what you're doing too is like amazing work, which we already know works, Health Canada.
Yeah.
When I seen what you were doing, and we do this out in Surrey, it makes a difference. Now, my hope is that we can convince a lot of these recovery societies to add medical marijuana, because that's what it really is, and it's a medicine, and use high dose edibles and get people off the juice and the Suboxone by doctors helping them slowly do and introduce the high dose edibles so we can get rid of that stuff.
There's a huge amount of work that can be done with convincing these treatment centers that cannabis should not be on their list of banned substances, that it's a tool that people can use to help them get through that whole process. And it's not a negative thing, it's a positive thing. So I'm really pleased that you guys are doing that. But before we move on, I mean, Bridget, I want to hear a little bit about your motivation and, you know, how you became this person that cares enough on a Christmas to go out and give gifts to people that you don't even know.
So without going into too much detail about current family member, but back in 2021, my daughter had relapsed on heroin, and our world was greatly impacted. That's an understatement. My daughter did come back again after that time. She got a few months in, and unfortunately her mother-in-law died of a heroin overdose in February. And unfortunately, as an addict, that's how you deal with intense emotional pain. And they unfortunately relapsed again. But at the time, I believe that we help others, right? In the times when I can't help my daughter, that the family members of these people on the streets, that I can't give them a home, I can't make them clean, I can't make them want a different alternative, but at least I know that I'm making the world, I'm doing something productive in the time when I don't know if my daughter's going to be okay. I don't know that.
Yeah, no, that's a...
But
I'm sorry to even ask you. I didn't understand, you know, the depth of the involvement.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's a way to give back. It's a way to feel like you're doing something. I completely relate.
To be productive at least. I'm doing
so,
something in the meantime, right?
Well, I'm very happy that you found a way to, you know, to do something that can fill some of that that need that you would have, and that I feel that too. For me, you know, I used cocaine for a while, you know, mostly a weed smoker, but there was certainly a couple of years, 3 or 4 years of my life when I was using way too much of that. And I grew up in an area where, you know, first downtown east side of Vancouver, until I was smoking cigarettes when I was 10 years old and getting into trouble and stealing stuff. And then my parents decided to move me out to Surrey because that would be a better place for a kid than Vancouver. Well, not really back in the days when I went there, I'll tell you. There was gangs and a lot of alcohol abuse and other things, and I was right into all of that. You know, I drank like a fish until I was old enough to drink at 19, at which point I'd had enough, and that was the end of alcohol. And I just got lucky. You know, I just got lucky. Lucky with who my parents were, lucky that my cousin made the National Hockey League and inspired me to start playing hockey, and it sent me equipment to be able to do that. Got me into a different group of people than I was with, you know, other than that. And looking back, I mean, man, so many of my friends and people I went to school with ended up, you know, addicted, in jail, in gangs, you know, dead. And I could easily have been, you know, one of those statistics. So for me, it's a way to give back to that as well, and to recognize that, you know, well, I could have been here under very different circumstances. I have the ability to be here and give back and help these people that are in these situations. And so it is powerful for me as well. And I can see that it's also powerful for you and for you. And yeah, and that's kind of what drives us. You know, most of my volunteers here as well, you know, have personal stories, and my suppliers as well. That you know, they've got reasons why they want to be involved in helping here, because it feels like, it allows us to feel like we're doing something in an otherwise very hopeless situation.
Yeah,
you know, for sure. So I mean, where from here for you guys? I mean, you're stepping it up to 3 times a week now.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, I like that.
You know, it took us 2.5 years of doing it. Well, the last 2.5 years were of when we did it. So the math seems a bit weird there. It's only weird because we did it for 2.5 years, and then the city of Vancouver passed a motion to support what we were doing. But we ended up doing it for another full year after that before we ended up finding this storefront and being able to have a storefront for a short time. For the first year, we did it once a week for exactly 52 weeks. And then for the next 2.5 years, we did it twice a week. I actually asked Vandu if we could do it 3 times a week, but they didn't have the capacity to, they're a busy place there. But in hindsight, 3 times a week is a bit much, to chew on. So, twice a week was fine. And then we moved into here. But, oh dear, now I've lost my point of why I was telling you that stuff. Oh well.
Yeah.
So we ended up with a storefront. And that's the right way to do it. I mean, to have people lining up on the street. I mean, what you guys are doing, going and finding them, it works, but it's inefficient. And then, you'd be better off if you had a location and these people could come to you and they would know where to come. And then you'd get the ones that really want to come and see you. And that's how that works. And so that's what we did too. But when the city passed that motion, we did eventually find the storefront. Was, now we've got a place where we started at 6 days a week. Within a year, we were at 7 days a week. But we're here all the time for people. We're able to continue to do this, and that is looking like maybe it's in the future for what you guys are doing as well.
That's kind of what I'm hoping. There's somebody we've been talking to, so that's still like a little bit away,
Right.
Neil, from the person that you hooked me up with. Yeah, there is some potential there. Hopefully, like the big thing is to get into the mayor and stuff, and
And have you had any conversations with anybody, law enforcement? Or...
Yeah, law enforcement got lot in that involved with them.
Right.
But the thing is to get in with the mayor, with what's going on in this area too, because as we know, the
Brenda Locke is the new mayor there.
Yeah, keeping the RCMP or getting a city force, and the government says, well, no, we're going to progress with the city force.
Well, that's the recommendation. I believe is how Brenda Locke is taking it at this point. Although I think that Farnworth thinks it's a little more than just a recommendation. We'll see how that all spells itself out.
Yeah,
in the meantime, I mean, there's still this issue that you guys have there that I'm sure Brenda Locke is aware of, especially with Wally being in her jurisdiction and,
of course.
And what's going on there. It's similar to what's going on right here in downtown east side of Vancouver. So that it is on her radar for sure. I think there's some potential there for you guys to be able to get some traction with the mayor's office to be supporting what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, we have that too. We feel we have that, although it's a new mayor now, and we haven't had communication with the mayor. But on his council, as part of his team, is Rebecca Bly, who is the councillor that passed the motion that said we could move into a storefront until we couldn't. You can, we'll support you. But the federal government has to support you first.
Again, that's kind of like a good luck Chuck thing.
So,
right?
well, I mean, she didn't know, to be fair. When the licensing department showed up, we were just acting on the meeting and what resulted from that meeting that we had with her, where it was that we were going to go find a storefront and we were going to get these poor people off the sidewalk lining up for hours and they could, have a real dignified store to walk into, at their own time. And so we had that meeting with her, and we did go out, and like I said, it took us almost a year to find a storefront. I was in touch with her sporadically during that time, letting her know we were still looking, and it's hard to find a landlord who's going to rent to you in Vancouver if what you're going to be doing is providing cannabis and you're not a legal entity.
Exactly.
They know exactly all about that here in Vancouver. Yeah, all the landlords have lawyers, and they don't want to rent to anybody that's not covered under the Cannabis Act. And we were very honest about what we were doing. We felt that we were going to be licensed, or exempted or something, but that wasn't good enough for most of the landlords. They just didn't want to talk about it. But this fellow that we were renting off of here, he did believe us, and he did like what we were doing and wanted to support us. So he rented to us. But when the city licensing came and said, no, you have to get a license from Health Canada first, then and we certainly applied in a timely fashion and in something that. In fact, also with an emergency application just for the temporary exemption to allow us to stay in the store, and that didn't happen either. So when push came to shove, I mean, his lawyer was like, well, you're going to have to evict them and serve them an eviction notice, because if you don't, the city can fine you, they can take your building away. So that's the route that happened there. And we got kicked out of here and out into the RV. Oh. And that's over 2.5 years now of being in the RV, waiting for Health Canada to do the right thing.
And like you
You
have
know?
a storefront.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But like you said, Neil, that Health Canada really isn't in the business of keeping us healthy now, is he?
I
No.
think Health Canada, by our experience, is in the business of making sure that the promises that they've made to the powerful people who want to be able to monopolize and maintain high prices for legal cannabis, that they don't cave in and allow for licenses or special exemptions for people that want to provide it at cheap prices. And I think that's what's going on. I can't think of any other. There is really nothing else that makes any sense. And in any of the conversations that we have had, or any of the interactions we've had with Health Canada, and especially that one actual conversation we had back 2 years ago in December, their concern is financial. Their concern is about the stores that are operating right now, and for them to allow us to be able to sell cannabis at the $1 a gram like we are, and to have really cheap prices for all the other really good cannabinoids, is something that they don't want that to be out there in the marketplace, because they've got the corner on the market. They get to charge whatever they want. They got taxes coming off at 3 different levels of government, and other fees and expenses all the way along. The packaging is ridiculous and those must be government insiders that got those contracts.
Well, if we're so worried about our environment, right? I can't figure this out. So we're so worried about oh no, global warming, all these things, but we've got all these dispensaries, out there with all this packaging. There you go, there we go. And
So
they put 3 grams in that or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's just
Even 1
it's
gram.
stupid as
1
hell.
gram,
1
yeah,
gram.
even 1 gram.
Even 1 gram.
Exactly,
1
guy.
gram. And
What a
the-
waste, You think about our landfills, about
This
this
isn't
stuff.
the worst one, and there are some better ones. I've seen some packaging that is less intrusive in the environment, but I've also seen worse ones than this. But this happened. The packaging policies of the Cannabis Act and Health Canada were brought into effect right at the same time as Trudeau was up there talking about they were going to ban single-use plastics in the environment.
Yeah. but what is that?
This is, according to the federal government, this is a single-use container because it's had narcotics in it and can't be used again for anything. Not recyclable because it might have traces of narcotics on it.
But don't they clean those out and recycle?
Well, wouldn't you think you could clean it out? I mean, anybody knows that. A little white
Isopropyl.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
I mean, come on.
Remove
Are we
the
really that
label, with a
stupid?
little ISO takes the label off with the glue and everything.
No,
in
it's
there.
just, it's
Yeah.
crazy,
That's
crazy,
pretty
crazy.
easy.
Like I said, it makes no sense. This is a logic-free zone. Don't try to understand the attempt to prohibit or over-regulate cannabis. It is not about saving the children. It is not about damaging your brain. It is not about any of the distractions and the excuses that they make. In fact, in most cases, they don't even tell you, that there are any actual reasons for anything. We got to get the microbes down. There has to be 0.03 microbes on that weed or it's dangerous for people.
Yeah.
Well, there was never an issue with microbes on weed for, decades of prohibition. There's no worry about the microbes that are all over the fruits and vegetables in the grocery store. I mean, there's no need, they don't give you any justification. They don't say, well, it's because these microbes are directly linked to brain damage in young children. We have hospital wards filled with these people and we have to do something. No, they don't say it. They just say, no, we have to get the microbe count down because they're dangerous. Without, science these days, it depends on who's in charge of the study.
Does that go, kind of blows my mind. Would that kind of work with alcohol then? You got beer coming in at 5%, but drink hard stuff, it's 40%, wine's coming in about 20%, but now they just did a study saying that actually alcohol is not good, it can actually
Not
cause
even one
cancer.
drink.
Not even one drink, so but
I thought red wine was good for your heart.
well, I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
it still has other negative implications.
that's
And you
what
can have
microbes-
one a week, or I forget what the latest guidelines are. But oh my god,
I think the government, whoever
breathing
does
is more dangerous, my
does
god,
these
than having one alcoholic
interviews
drink a
and
week.
stuff like this for the government who makes these things happen, who are these people?
It's handled by regulatory boards. And the problem with the regulatory boards is that they don't have a board of regulators above them to make sure that they're regulating reasonably and fairly. So these regulatory boards get infiltrated by the people from the very industries that they're trying to regulate, and then they get to make the policies that are no longer protecting the public, which is the whole idea behind regulatory boards. They're there to now protect the industry that they're regulating. And so they got
There's a whole
perverted.
lot of regulating.
Well, but
Absolutely
not quite
nothing.
enough. But not quite enough. I mean, there's meat that's regulated. There's lots of these different regulatory boards that oversee these different industries, but there is no real regulatory board above them of people that are independent who are able to scrutinize what these regulators are doing within that industry and make, not just recommendations, but actually have some teeth and be able to take people, to prosecution, because it's like insider trading. It's very similar to insider trading. They get these people whose best interests are the industry itself to be on the regulatory board that allows for practices and prices and other things that gouges the public, that provides way more money for that industry than what they would otherwise probably be able to get if they did things fairly and reasonably. There's a whole lot to it. But really, in my mind, what's always been needed is just one more, not two more, but one more level of overseers to regulate the regulators, because that's where it's really out of control. And you sure see it with cannabis.
Yeah.
That the regulations that they're putting on cannabis are just ridiculous. You want to talk about alcohol and the comparisons between what you can do to access alcohol and what you have to do to access cannabis.
Exactly.
And you look at the properties of the two and the actual statistics of where are there issues in society that would require regulation, because regulation is something that is a part of the role of government where there are problems. So when there's an exchange of goods in the environment, in the marketplace, and there's a problem that results from that, like the toys aren't safe for children under certain ages, or different product problems that you can have, you have the government in there to regulate, to make sure that you're not using child labor, that you're using safe practices, that there's the work safe deal for employees, and all the different ways that government makes sure that the products that come to market are safe for the people that are using it. And that's all valid, and that's what you want. That is the role of government, is to put reasonable regulations on things. But in the case of cannabis and some other areas of regulation, it's become quite perverted. Like I say, usually
like
by
Nike,
insiders.
for instance, like Nike is allowed to use sweat factory children to make Nike shoes.
And
but
Coca-Cola is allowed to use
well,
cocaine in there, or to bring in coca with cocaine and extract the cocaine and sell it to the dentistry. Because it was the original formulation for their drink,
exactly.
and they want to keep the same taste.
So pick me.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're selling a product, let's say with cannabis, is there not a warning label on it, what it would do to you?
If you're selling cannabis,
is there a warning
There
label?
is a requirement by the government and the Cannabis Act for sale items of cannabis to have on it this particular stamp
that evil
here
sticker
that says stop with a cannabis leaf or a THC. We've co-opted the similar sort of thing there. I think it's on my thing right there.
See?
You don't need to stop the THC because the THC will stop the fentanyl.
Yes, that's right.
So, there's no need for that.
Right, exactly.
You don't need to be afraid of THC. That's exactly why you went and bought this.
Yeah.
The only reason you went and spent, $55 for 2 grams or 3 grams of weed is because you wanted the THC in there. You don't need a warning sign against the THC.
But does it have a warning on it?
Well, that is one of the warnings, or maybe
What
other
does it
ones.
say it'll do if I smoke too much of that?
Does
it say I'll break out in Doritos?
No.
What does it say?
Nothing like that. Nothing like
there's
that,
no
really.
warning on it?
Oh, there is some warnings here.
Does
Other than drive-
wait a minute. I was
drive
just
your
thinking,
car or
does
something.
alcohol have a warning that, like, if I drink it, I'm going to beat my wife and hurt my
It
children
says
and
warning.
maybe
I can't-
drive a car and
I need my
do all these
glasses
kind of things?
properly
Yeah.
to read this one.
What does
It
it
can
say?
take up to 4 hours to feel the full effects.
Oh.
This is weed. This is flower they're talking about.
Oh,
These people are
well, that's a
stupid
warning.
as
It's
hell.
going to take me
4
4
hours.
hours.
I never had a joint where it
So
took
it's
me
going to
4
take a bit
hours
of
to
time
get
out of my day.
Yeah.
Can you read that? For me?
All right, I can read that.
'Cause I
Okay.
can't
There we
read
go.
properly.
All
Terrible.
right. So, warning: it can take up to 4 hours to feel the full effects
Okay.
from eating and drinking cannabis.
Okay.
Consuming more within this time period can result in adverse effects that may require medical attention.
So you'll become more sleepy and probably eat a whole lot of Doritos.
Well, the key there is
You might
That's
not want to
gonna-
drive your
it's gonna
car.
hit you
the
to 5
key
minutes,
bullshit
not 4
there
hours.
is the medical attention.
Yeah.
Medical
It says
attention.
it could have adverse effects that might require medical attention. And that is a falsehood because
Can you overdose on marijuana?
you can't fatally overdose.
Oh, then it's
You
not
can't
medical
fatally
emergency.
overdose, but you can
You
take
can
a
read it.
dose that is over what you were looking for,
Okay.
and have an effect that you aren't very comfortable with. And it
But
cannot-
is that going to affect my life? Like, it
no,
will kill
there's
me?
no long-term issues with
No.
any respect to damage with your body. There is
Okay.
short-term, being really too high on edibles.
Or you might not be able to drive your car.
You
from
should
a
not
party or
drive your
something.
car.
So
That
it's
is
not a-
absolutely one of the
Okay.
adverse effects of eating too much cannabis.
You
I
might
don't
break
know what
out
eating any
emotions.
amount of cannabis. I would imagine there's people out there that eat the right amount of cannabis. It deals with their pain. It doesn't impair them,
Okay.
and they're able to properly drive. Pain can be very impairing. To drive with pain,
Yes.
it's very debilitating. And so that and I find that myself, but it's only with smoked cannabis that I need, that if I'm driving long trips, I need to be ingesting cannabis, or the arthritis in my feet and my hands is more than what I can bear, and it's quite a distraction from driving. So for me, it's a tool to use to deal with the pain that would otherwise debilitate my ability to drive. But you can eat too much. You can smoke too much too, especially if you get into the concentrates, or depending on who you are as an individual with respect to your own limits on how much,
But it's
I
not.
could-
But it's not
but as a
dangerous.
chronic, I mean, any chronic knows you can smoke 4 or 5 really heavy joints over the course of a full hour driving, and if you're able to focus and that's just a tool and it's not impairing you, then you're fine. But other people, the slightest little bit, and they feel impaired and they don't feel safe to drive, and good on them, they shouldn't drive.
Then it's up to the individual,
But
but it's
it's
not a
can't
dangerous
be tested
warning
for it.
label.
I mean, you can run a person through some of the old sobriety tests that they used to do, and they do that, and they do a little more of flashing the flashlight in your eye a little bit, and getting to see where your pupils are and shit like that. But they can't really tell by that for the most part. If they can tell by that you're impaired, then you're impaired, and you shouldn't drive.
Right.
Because and that's like for me, I got issues with arthritis in my feet. So when they wanted me to walk that straight line, one foot in front of the other one there, unwavering, I mean, I had real issues in my feet when I was doing that, and I told them at the end, I said, so I'm not staggering, I'm just having a little
because
issue with the arthritis, right?
You're functioning.
I
with your
passed
feet.
every time on the one Freedom Tour in 2012. I had my own dedicated Freedom Tour vehicle, like a Tommy Chong truck,
Yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that in the news. Actually.
And Bob Hyde put a big cannabis leaf unfolding out of the front bumper or grill there, and we had pot leaves all around it, and there was smoke billowing out the window all the time. And I was driving across Canada, going to police station to police station, and they were talking about prohibition.
Yeah.
And I got pulled over, I think, half a dozen times during that 5-month trip to do
That's
the.
not that bad. Half a dozen.
Half a dozen, yeah, I think it was 6
10
exactly,
provinces
something like that.
and-
Once in Quebec, and the one in Grand Forks was the first one there, coming around down the hill into Grand Forks.
Okay, yeah.
They were waiting for me with a little roadblock there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna get this guy from.
But I educated that RCMP officer quite well that day and drove away, without any interference. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So that's another area. I mean, I see that down in the States they've pretty much done away with impaired by cannabis stuff like that. They know better than that now. They're back to being focused on alcohol. which is
Alcohol,
where you
what
should
we
focus
know is
on,
dangerous.
That's for sure.
Completely.
Not that people can't be impaired on cannabis. They
No,
can be.
no.
But most of those people are too paranoid to drive. Alcohol.
Yeah.
Those people get drunk and they don't think they're
They
drunk
get
at all.
liquid courage.
Yeah,
They can
have-
drive anything at any
I'm
time.
fine to drive.
Exactly. And you
Yeah.
got to battle the keys out of them and stuff. Yeah.
Whereas I've got friends and they don't appear impaired to me, but they're like, nope, not driving. Sorry, I puffed 3 times on that joint and I'm not driving for another hour. I'm like,
And they
"All right."
know their limitations.
They know their
too. It's up to
limitations.
the
I always wanted to
individual.
ask you, how did you and Glenn meet? What's the story between you and Glenn? Right? Really, how did you guys meet?
Just through the cannabis community.
Yeah.
I used to be one of those people standing in the crowd watching Neil sing on the stairs of the art gallery, and then eventually we could come to the community. I started doing videos and stuff like that. We became aware of each other. We had to meet each other.
Why did I ask you to come on the show and be my 420 guy?
Because you were going to doing the rant and you wanted to lighten it up and have something a little bit lighter after 20 minutes.
We were just friends at that time, and
Yeah.
and I just decided you should come on and help me with that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's how that
really
happened.
part of the show. They'd seen what I had done.
What Glenn
I
doesn't
had-
know is that at the time he was someone who was struggling quite a bit with some PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought
that
that
too, Glenn.
I thought that if I put him on my show every week, that I could keep an eye on him. I could, keep him on the straight and narrow, feeling okay.
Thank you.
And that's what happened.
I didn't know you had that.
Oh yeah, scoliosis and PTSD.
Oh yeah.
I had 11 years of psychiatric help with cannabis too.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
finished the
Exactly,
psychiatric
man.
help,
It's amazing shit.
Yeah,
That's
and,
awesome.
he said I'm a totally different person than what I used to be, right? And so
That's awesome. So the cannabis has definitely helped you.
cannabis has helped, and the psychiatrist helped too, right?
Yeah,
And
of
he
course.
knew about the cannabis, and he would never talk down about it. He was more interested in what I was learning through cannabis.
That's
and
awesome.
my-
When having
Your
a
mentally-
doctor
your
that
mental
Yeah,
health was
right?
yeah, he was a
better.
German doctor, Dr. Strauss, and that was her.
Nice.
And he doesn't take referrals. He actually, if he finds you in the psych ward and he thinks he can help you, he'll reach out to you and say, I can help you. And that's what he did to me many years
Right
ago.
on,
He had
bud,
seen me
yeah.
a couple times in my 20s and stuff like that there.
Nice.
And he reached out and said, I think I can help you. Right? So, and he did.
Oh.
Here I am today.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so he was my guest on the show for every 420 session for 3 years or more. We're in our 4th year now. And not that long ago, my producer, Neil, who'd done the show from the beginning, we worked on it together to put it together to start with. He was going to go to India and learn yoga.
Oh.
And so he left, and Glenn, he's a bit of a wizard with technological type
That
things.
he is, I know.
And so he just slid right in there to the producer slot. So now he's filling both roles.
And I like it. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
And now he's my voice off in the distance, like the off-camera voice as well. So that's good too. So yeah, that's great, you guys, with what you're doing there. I hope it works out really well and it continues to evolve, which is the right way to go. I think it will, because you guys are kind of very determined sort of people here.
Yeah.
And, I think the obstacles that might come along, you'll more than deal with. And
we're trying.
it's such a rewarding thing to do and to watch it grow. I hope you get a lot of volunteers helping you.
Yeah.
I hope you get a lot of donations, that people will, recognize that, what they're doing here needs to be supported. The CSP only works by donation. It's those marvelous, amazing people that got me going in the beginning, and all those that along the way, and the ones that we have today. Without them, it doesn't work. It would work if government funded it. That would do it.
Chase talks about that all the time, and it's like he's like almost like what Bricks was saying too to me the other day when I was talking to Bricks. It's like I can see why, when people have just had enough, But as soon as they take those people away, my belief, because my family's been here a long time, that's when we lose the battle, right? Because each person they can convince, well, that's it, I gotta give up, right? That's when it makes it harder. It makes it harder for us to continue to battle these people, right? When we're losing people, or
it's all about numbers.
Yeah.
Critical mass or not, it's all about numbers.
Yeah.
It's all about not just people, but it's the right people. It's about what people are actually going to do.
Smart, educated people.
Who's going to write a letter.
Yeah.
You got some passion in your heart. You care about these issues. Get it off your chest. Practice writing some letters, and then get one that you really feel is powerful, and then send it off to whoever it is, the health minister, the justice minister, your local mayor, the police chief, whoever. Send a whole bunch of copies out. Send it out by email and copy a whole bunch of important people that might care about what you're saying. And if enough people did that sort of thing, I think there's great power in personal stories and people that have that actual passion and motivation because of their own personal experience. These are some of the things that do move those sorts of people in those places. They're bound by money, right? And promises to powerful people.
They greed over money.
But, it doesn't mean that they have to do that. And there have been many people in the past that have risen above that and decided to just go against the master's wishes and support the needs of the people. And we just need more people to be that type of an activist. And if a whole bunch of us, ordinary people, contact those people and say, hey, this is serious, this is personal, this is life and death, this is family and feelings and futures, then maybe we can get to some of those people, and maybe that'll become a thing. Is that these people that have been, guarding the gate of prohibition and over-regulation for all this time, for their own, that maybe it'll become a thing that they all say enough is enough too. That I'm sick of being part of this, and I do understand that what we're doing here is just making a whole bunch of money for a bunch of rich people who don't deserve it or need it, and at the expense of a whole bunch of poor people who are, either poor by this means or that means, or poor because they're now addicted to drugs because of unethical doctors and pharmaceutical companies that got them hooked on this stuff in the first place,
And the
all the
mentally
rest
ill
of that.
too, and the mentally
And the
ill
mentally
too.
ill. And maybe it'll touch enough people and enough people's families that a bunch of these people will decide that it's time that they stop being, like all the police officers, all the judges, all of these other policymakers and politicians and the bureaucrats, and the people in Health Canada, so many others that are all doing their part. The bankers, the insurance companies, it goes on and on. The list of people that are involved in stigmatizing and oppressing anything to do with cannabis.
No.
And a lot of them don't even know why they're doing it. They don't even understand that it's this big picture about trillions of dollars. If they can actually, capitalize and monopolize on the cannabis market, then and at the exclusion of everybody else. If they could actually get away with that, which they can't, but if they could, then it's really big dollars for all those people that have invested and all those people that are positioned to be able to get away with that. And it's just the same old horrors of having all the people that still would be growing outside of that regime that are still now going to be oppressed by even more dollars put towards the enforcement, and the protection racket that they run. So
I just wanted to say one thing. If anybody would like to come out with us, give us, contact us through the Newton CSP program. I just believe in my heart that I treat people as though I'd wish to be treated. And if I was hungry, I would want someone to give me a sandwich.
yeah.
And we can give out a lot of sandwiches, but we got to have the money to make them. And we got lots of time to give them out. If you want to come out and help, if you want to contribute, we've got a list of the things that we buy every week. If you feel more comfortable buying one of those items on that list, maybe once a week you might want to contribute to that on an ongoing basis if that's what your heart's telling you to do.
And you're giving out
Absolutely.
joints as well, so
Oh,
you,
yeah,
so
man.
you would
Absolutely.
appreciate
So
some good
this is just
rollable trim or something like that.
Yeah.
What I
So there'd
do
be
too,
both
Neil,
two
is
parts of it,
what I
yeah.
have been doing, because I haven't, I'm not the best roller, but I'm probably gonna have to get a bump box or something and do that eventually here.
Or find a good volunteer who likes to roll.
That's what I was going to say. Bridget said, I'm just going to go get a rolling machine, because the other day Bridget said she did it at the event.
Another lady taught me how to roll.
Yeah,
the
so
thing
there
with
you go,
the
right?
box.
You add another task to it.
Another task, yeah.
Well, you're not making
In between
sandwiches, you're
slicing
rolling
meat.
joints. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly.
Roll.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah, I attracted a whole bunch of rollers. George was one of them. Ted was another one. Ted had been actually rolling for me for 420 and Cannabis Days before that, because I was the guy that had to eat all the weed and get it handed out at
that's a
420.
lot of doobies.
And
now.
it was. So, we had a big team of people that were rolling. And then when we started this CSP, I had a bunch of joints left over from the previous event that we hadn't thrown out from the stage because we had enough or more than enough. And so I included a joint in the care packs that I put together of the donations of edibles that I got for the people that lined up. And then I guess maybe 2 or 3 events later, I was out of those joints, and I never was going to include joints in the first place. This was all about edibles for me, because I knew it was the edibles that worked for getting people through the withdrawal. But as soon as I didn't have joints for people, oh man, you should have heard all the people complaining that there wasn't a joint in their bag. And that's what allowed me to realize that time period between when you take the edible and when it actually kicks in is a time period that a good joint can bridge for you. And so that's why they liked it. They'd take the edible, then they'd smoke the joint. Well, by the time the effects of the joint were starting to wear off, the effects of the edible were starting to kick in, and it was all good. So after that, it was, you get your edibles and a joint every time.
Yeah.
So I ended up with this team of rollers. We called them the Holy Rollers too, and some of them were overlapped from the 420 rallies, but others were just people that were in the lineup that said that they could roll, and we'd give people a shot, sitting at the table there. And so once a week we had people sitting at a table all rolling joints, and then we'd give them out to the people in the lineup.
It's incredible when you go out there and you hand out a sandwich and a banana and here's a juice box and did someone get this and that, and then they're like, Garrett's like, oh, I got something else for you, and he goes, anybody want any weed? And you're like, what? Weed? How much are these? They're free. Free?
Yeah, that's
Really?
next level.
They're like,
it is next
free
level.
weed,
It
and
is
it's
next
safe.
level.
To be there
It's
to
safe.
see it.
I mean, a
They're like,
sandwich
oh,
is
wow.
great, and they love it, and holy smokes, somebody's giving me food, but to give them a joint,
A joint.
that's next level. That's like,
The
oh
one
my
guy, we
god,
gave
I've
him
got
a
a
banana.
joint,
We gave him a banana.
And what I have been doing now is because I had a whole bunch of rollies given to us and stuff like that.
Right.
So and I have enough bags and recycled bags. So I've been putting I would say about 1.5 grams of weed in there with 5 rollies, right?
Yeah, so if we can
And
roll
zip
around.
it, right, and
We
then
did some of
handing
that
that
too.
out, man. And then we just did it on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Like I said, it was people are freaking out, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's like they're free.
Yeah.
So really? So can
Well,
I
I
get
certainly
one?
remember,
Whoa.
before guys like me came on, that there's times when, man, you could sure use a joint,
Mm-hmm.
and then the thought that someone would come along and offer you a joint is just like, no,
It's
that's
actually
can't happen. That's
unheard
not
of.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody will give you a puff off a joint if you're lucky, if you can find somebody standing at a bus stop or something. But in those times of need, when you don't have any, and somebody's going to actually give you a joint, I mean, that is really something else. That really does so much for people. I mean, a sandwich is great, and people need food, but there is just something powerful about the introspection, the life-changing moments that happen when you're contemplating where you're at. You're homeless, you're hungry, blah blah blah. And if you can smoke a joint, that can really help to sort things out in your head a little bit about what you need to do for yourself and how things can maybe get better.
And it's amazing because it's a safe supply.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a good
you
night's
can-
sleep for people too.
Yeah, and you can get marijuana on the streets, but a lot of the times it has things added to it, which can be dangerous.
Yeah, hopefully not too much
No.
of that.
But
But
because-
marijuana in and of itself,
But this stuff
primarily
is
is
safe,
a
and
safe
it's-
supply. If it's coming from
it's a
people like
comfort.
the Cannabis
It's a comfort
Substitution
for them.
Program,
Yeah,
then they can count on it for sure.
Yeah. it's a
Well,
comfort to them.
And well,
Yeah.
like I said, I heard this from the THC guys, the Honey Connect lab guys.
Right.
The one of the brothers said, like, look, Gary, when you're going out and you're giving these guys at least a doobie or two, you're stopping them from sticking a needle in the arm for just a few hours or maybe even a day, and maybe that changes it, and they decide, hey man, I've had enough.
I don't want to
Yeah.
do this anymore.
Right.
100%. It can be very powerful for people. The way it was described to me early on, like years ago when we started doing it at the Herb School, was that it's a change of path. It's like it just changes my path. Like they're doing their regular routine, which is going out and finding enough money so they can get together, so they can buy the hit of whatever it is they need a hit of. And if they get some weed and they're in the middle of it, now they smoke a joint. Now they're not focused on getting the money to get the hit. They're not even focused on the hit. Now they're home watching some TV. Now they're sleeping when they otherwise wouldn't have slept.
No.
And they would say, it just puts me on a different path, And so having something, and what we do here is with $1 a gram, where people can buy 5 grams for $5 once a day per person. That changed a whole bunch of people's lives here because they need the weed. They know they need the weed. The availability of the weed is at $10 a gram. That's basically what they have to pay here.
That's
So for them to get $20 in a day, that's pretty good. They don't usually get that much money, but if they got $20, they're going to spend it on 2 grams of weed because they need 2 grams of weed.
Right.
If we give them a 5 gram bag for $5 and they've got a $20 bill, now they've got more than enough weed for that day, and they've got a joint or two left over when they wake up in the morning, and they have the other $15 to go buy some food with or some other things that
And
they
they're
need.
taking them
And
away
this
from
is
the
the story
harder
we were
drugs.
told repeatedly after we started doing that by people was, man, you just made my day so much better because, and that was the story. They'd say, now I got weed left over in the morning, now I got money for food.
So this would be a
marijuana.
person that would be doing like a harder drug in that time.
Well, it's anybody really that wants to use weed that doesn't have much money. All the poor people, weed helps them a lot.
Yeah.
right.
For people that are trying to get off the hard drugs, we try to encourage them to have a muffin, or an edible.
The edible's better for them.
The edible is going to do a better job of replacing the use of what they're using
Right.
with the hard drugs. And if they do it, if a couple of good strong brownies, like probably 200 milligrams, but that's such a generalization because everybody's different.
Everybody's
but
different.
just say, on average there, if they can get 200 milligrams of edible for 4 nights in a row, they could do 4 nights in a row of not doing the other drug and purposely get through that withdrawal stage.
So they'd be
And
coming
then-
off of it using the
Yeah, it takes about 4
marijuana.
days, 4 or 5 days for the worst to be over. For
4
most
For
people.
most,
Withdrawal's
that's true.
different for everybody
Yeah.
for sure.
That's true.
But generally speaking, about 4 or 5 days for the worst to
The
be
worst
over.
of it.
And
Okay.
then after that, it becomes more and more manageable. And especially
Right.
if you've got edibles to help you manage that rest of the journey,
Then you wouldn't
away
be
you
doing
go.
like the methadone stuff. That kind of
Whatever
stuff would the
hard
government would
drug
want
that
you
you're
to
on,
do.
whatever is your drug of choice, be it
Right.
jib, fentanyl, heroin, crack cocaine,
Right.
crystal meth, it doesn't matter. Cannabis is effective for replacing the use of those in the form of high dose edibles,
Oh, okay.
for a period of time. And like I say, if you use it heavily and get through like 4 or 5 days and don't use that other drug of choice in the meantime, you're well on your way to now not using that anymore. The worst is over with how your body would
And then you
react to
could
that.
just smoke like a little bit or maybe
Well, I mean,
edible.
it depends again on the individual.
On the
I mean,
individual.
some people, all they need after that is some good flour. Other people need concentrates, and other people stay on edibles.
So it just
it
depends
really
on the
depends on the
person.
individual and what their needs are, what what they're battling. Most people are battling either physical trauma pain of some sort,
Right.
or emotional trauma pain of some sort, which is it's as real. You can see how real it is by meeting many of the people here who just can't seem to be able to cope with the damage done and the pain caused by emotional trauma. So it's not just the visible physical traumas that you can see
The
that so
stuff
many people are in.
inside.
It's stuff in your heart. It's stuff in your mind. It's whether or not you were lucky enough as a human being to be born with a coping mechanism for dealing with trauma as it comes or not. Because some people, it doesn't take much trauma. They don't have the tools to cope, and it's not their fault. You have what you get in life, and some of it inherent in your personality and the way your brain works. Other of it is provided to you by your environment and the teachings of your parents and what you learn along the way. But some people just aren't lucky enough to learn to have the coping mechanisms that they need to deal with some trauma that's about to befall them that some people handle better than others. That's
That's so true.
Yeah,
and
that's
you
true.
can't really put a judgment on people and say, well, you're weak, you couldn't deal with this. Well, it's not their fault. You either had those skills or you didn't. And in most cases, they were things that you were born with or things that you were given by the environment that you were in. So we need to have great compassion for people that struggle hard with dealing with the traumas that have happened to them. And
Exactly,
recognize that, there but for the grace of nature goes us. Any one of us could have suffered these same traumas. Any one of us could have been born lacking in those necessary skills to cope with these things, as most of us have to cope with different traumas along the way, right? So, that's how I feel about all that. Well, thank you guys.
Hey man, thank you for
Thank you so much for
having
We'll
us
check
on.
back in with you later, I'm sure. And
Yeah,
I like to keep track of the other CSPs that are out there.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Thank you so much, Neil.
very good.
Okay, guys, thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Take care. Thanks there, my bud.
Yeah, no problem.
The CSP, right? I guess the moment in the show where we do a little bit of a summary of what it's all about, we are on a quest for a low barrier access community cannabis store available to people around all different neighborhoods where it could be used and all across Canada and hopefully around the world. That would be the ultimate goal, is that cannabis be liberated and the truth be told about it to the point where all the different jurisdictions globally recognize the value that it is to people. And any of these jurisdictions' leaders, whoever they may be, whatever their stripes are, however they got to be leaders, be they, inherited it from a royal family, be they, elected into power, be they take over by military force, it really doesn't matter at all how it is that somebody came to be, in servitude or in power over the other multitudes of people within their particular area. But all of these people, and like I say, it doesn't matter how they got to be in that position. It is a position of responsibility. And it is the responsibility of people not to abuse other people. And if you are charged with the well-being of masses of people in some large corporation, company, country, whatever, you don't have any more right to bully and harm those people than anybody else does. And in fact, you are in a position of power, influence, and fragility, in that if you are in those positions and you do use your power to exploit, to harm, to force people and bully people into ways that are usually producing financial gain or some other gain of control, then you're a criminal, and you're a big-time criminal, and it should not be accepted around the world. So all of these jurisdictions around the world should give their collective heads a shake, and they should do their due diligence, which doesn't take much these days really if you want to know the truth about the nature of cannabis. And upon recognizing its value for human beings in so many ways, and its lack of any danger to humans in any significant way, that they would apologize for all of the decades and even last century of oppression and unjust rules and regulations and prohibitions, and that they would then partake in making sure that everybody gets what they need in the way of access to the cannabinoids that will help them. And the poorer and the more the people are struggling with the issues in their life, the more that these governing groups should be making sure that those are the people that really get the subsidies or the access that they need, because nothing's going to help them as well in their life to the extent that cannabis can on so many different levels, economically and spiritually and physically and emotionally and medically and you name it. Cannabis, fuel, whatever. Building material, make cement out of it and build a bunch of buildings, or I don't know, it just has so many values that it's hard to keep track of, and there's no deterring factors at all. All of the bullshit and lies that have been told for all of these decades to try to put down cannabis, to promote other industries, and to allow for control of people have been nothing short of exactly that, bullshit and lies. And one day that all needs to come out, and I hope that it can be within my lifetime that I get to see that happens. And in the meantime, we're trying to make that happen here in Vancouver, which has been the epicenter of a lot of the different drug policy changes, positive changes that have happened across this nation and beyond, where we're trying to force the issue of low barrier access to cannabis for all the reasons that we just stated here. And the Cannabis Substitution Program is the way that we're doing that, amongst other avenues of pursuit by other people that have similar needs and desires to protect the people that are being harmed by these prohibitions and over-regulations. But in Vancouver here, we're continuing to, despite opposition from government, despite not being licensed by any level of government, despite actually facing charges of selling without a license to be reviewed sometime next October, or beginning of the review of these things, and all the rest of it, we will continue to do the right thing and continue our demonstration, our civil disobedience, if you were, although it's more like criminal disobedience when you're actually breaking criminal law, and that's what you're charged under is criminal law. And we will continue to do that because that's the right thing to do. And we'll see how far it goes if push comes to shove, and who ends up falling down and who ends up still standing. I really believe in what we're doing here, and I believe in all of you, and I believe in all the other people that are supporting us in our quest here that aren't about to just settle for this legalization that's being forced on us by the Trudeau cartel that, as I've pointed out so many times, is harming so many vulnerable people, and that's what we have to stop to. So in the meantime, we are still in an RV. There's a long history, and I'm not going to summarize it all on this show, but the CSP for 6 years, handing out high-dose edibles to people. 3 years ago, coming up in another less than a month from now, entered into a collaboration with the Healing Wave Dispensary to be able to provide the same high-dose edibles and good quality cannabinoids in all of its forms to people that don't want to be part of a program, who wouldn't be part of a program, but need reasonable access, and a collaboration that allows for the continued success of the CSP. And so not being able to occupy the store because of licensing issues with the municipality and with Health Canada, we've been relegated to an RV, but we've been in that RV for 2.5 years, parked pretty much right out in front of where we are here, without fail, without ever missing a day, despite all kinds of different adversities that have happened to us. I will tell you that last night we had more adversity here as someone who, while they claimed upon my questioning them after the fact when they were sitting on the pavement in handcuffs, that the reason that they pepper sprayed myself and 3 of my colleagues here was because we gave him some bunk cannabis, which I dispute, and I disputed it with him, and I said that's not true, we wouldn't do that, we test everything that comes out of here, there's nothing you could consider bunk. And besides, if you didn't like what you got, you could have just brought it back and I would have replaced it, because we do that when that happens. He says, yeah, right. But in any case, this violent human being decided that that was the best way to solve his issue of having not liked something that he got from us. And rather than just not ever purchase from us again or come and see us again and tell all of his friends that they shouldn't come here, he decided the solution was to attack violently with bear mace 4 perfectly innocent people that are just here trying to help people. But the universe kicked into high gear. It was amazing to see. As I bolted out the side of the RV to chase this individual who is now running off and heading down the lane across the street, I almost ran right into the front of a VPD SUV cruiser that had his window down. I said, that fellow right there just pepper sprayed us. and they quickly pursued him down the lane. He didn't get very far at all, and he was under arrest. He also had an outstanding warrant for him, and he's been released this morning, but he has a no-go to anywhere close to me, any of the other 3 people that he assaulted, or anywhere near our RV. So, you know, that was a good response. I never appreciated the police more than I did last night, for sure. It was quite a scene here, as 2 of my other 3 colleagues really got hit hard, and you know, spent quite a long time trying to alleviate the distress of having been bear maced right in the face. So we continue to suffer, you know, numerous limitations and things that happen when you're doing what you're doing, but you don't have the security of a storefront. You're just operating out of an RV on the side of the road, and this is all on Health Canada, has been since the beginning. All of the troubles that we've had here, the very fact that we were arrested in the first place, this is all Health Canada's dereliction of its duty to provide a license or an exemption for a group that is demonstrated beyond any doubt that what we have here is a wonderful solution, part of the overall solution to a public health emergency of overdose and death. So there you go, now you know. And we're going to do our regular, let's go see what's going on out at the RV, and let's go see what the weather is in Vancouver. Actually, it wasn't hot and sunny at all, but it was nice and warm, and you know, a little bit of sun all over the place, some blue sky up there. It's really a typically very nice day to be in Vancouver.
No cars parked here. This is very unusual. Only my car, way up there.
Yeah. Busy day here though on the streets of Vancouver.
Oh, look at this guy in the van.
So there's our RV there, tucked in behind that other guy's car.
Yeah. Can't even see the sign because the guy in the van just blocked it off.
Hey, some people have a
I don't know about this guy in the van, man.
The sign is actually.
Is it
I think
pinned?
the van hit the RV. It's not moving.
Oh,
right in
yeah,
there,
you are.
can
Yeah,
see,
yeah. We can go right in there. Yeah, that's parked pretty close.
That's a pretty close parking
Yeah, I
job
wonder
there.
if they got whiplash in there.
Were you guys hurt at all? Have you guys heard it all when that car backed right into your RV?
This guy in the gray van?
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing.
You called in the authorities on that one? Yeah. I think it's not the first time either. A repeat offender.
The repeat
Dealt with
offender.
harshly.
On my neck.
Workman's comp.
Like father, like son.
I know.
Right? All right, we can probably sneak in now.
Probably.
It looks like it's time.
Got the signs. Got the signs. All right, I got the signs.
Hello. Okay, Glenn.
I'm in.
How's it going?
Good.
Hey, it smells like pot in here.
Oh.
What the hell's going
Is
on?
that why they call this the weed wagon? The
Winnebago.
Winnebago. Ganja Mobile.
It's like that show Breaking Bad.
Is
Breaking
it?
Bad.
Breaking
just
Bud.
exactly what
It's
you
Breaking Bud.
Breaking Bud. That's what George is doing over there.
Yeah.
See, George doing his regular thing. That's what
Hey, George.
I'm rolling myself a joint, actually.
Oh, yeah, well,
That's
he's
George. I thought that was
wow.
Tom
I
Hanks.
thought you only rolled for other people.
No. He does roll joints for himself and
Yeah.
other people as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Excuse me. So, how's life in the RV today, gentlemen?
Well, we're trying to make sure it's all exterminated, but it's really dirty in here. Like a lot of bacteria.
You need a maid.
There's no bacteria in here.
You need a maid.
No life in the
Dexter,
RV.
you were here yesterday when the attack happened. I did mention that just on the show here a few minutes
Yeah.
ago.
How you doing?
We had
Pretty
to wash down the tables and everything else. So it was a nasty thing that happened here.
Hey, buddy.
Well, we won't ask him his opinion on it because he's busy at the window there.
Yeah.
But it was really a nasty thing to happen, and it's just what is possible when you're in a neighborhood like this and you're unprotected. When you know, and even with storefronts, they have some bad things happen to their storefronts. But It's not like they get their storefront burnt down most of the time. It's not like they get the, direct
Well, it's not
attack
like,
with pepper spray.
It's not like you have this happening at Starbucks, or you have cigarette smoke blowing in your face. Apparently, meth, or like Des said she had issues with her drug test because of people blowing smoke in the area when they're doing the drugs. And it's like, this isn't going to happen at like a storefront where we actually have adequate protection. So
That's right.
It is frustrating.
It is. And I hope that I communicated that properly to Health Canada in the letter that I sent to them in response of their intent to deny, that it's very frustrating. We are quite outraged by the fact that we have been relegated to this RV for all of this time while we wait for bureaucrats in Ottawa who don't have a clue, obviously, of what we're doing here and how we're helping people. If they did, and if they had any compassion for wanting to help the people that are paying them to be, to help them, then they would absolutely be supporting us immediately. So it is very frustrating. We continue on. We are hopeful. I hope that one day I'll be able to honor my friend's request and we'll have a show that's all just positive and nice and everything. We won't have to talk about all this negative stuff. But until that happens, we really can't shut up about it. We have to take every opportunity to talk about it in the hopes that maybe things can change. And one of the things I like to do every week is encourage people to get involved, to try to find a way to make a difference in this world. It really provides you with amazing energy and purpose of life and solves a lot of issues, as we talked about with our guests today, that when you have something that you're not happy about with what's happening in the world, if you can find a way to give back and make that better for other people in similar situations, then that is a wonderful thing to do for yourself. And so I would recommend highly that people get involved and decide that, the world is corrupt and there is something that I can do about it. And maybe the only thing that we can think about doing right now is fighting for our right to properly access cannabis in a low barrier fashion, like every other commodity in the marketplace, fruit, vegetable, herb, all the rest of it that we can easily access. Cannabis needs to be treated the same way or better because it's of more value and more benefit to people than anything else in the marketplace. So whatever you can think to do, I highly recommend you do it. You know what you want, you know what you can do, you know what's important to you, you know your own creative ways of getting into the right people's minds and changing things. Please act on that. Please help us all make a difference. Be part of the team, and together we'll march into a much better future. It's only just the first step, but it's a great big step, and it's the one that needs to happen first. If you're not free to be able to properly access cannabis because of government interference, then you're not free at all, and they can get away with anything if they can get away with that, because there's no justification for withholding this miraculous healing herb from people and from citizens when nature's provided it for us. It's not the right of individual men to block access, and especially when you find out that the reason they're doing it is to protect financial interests in other areas, then it's a crime, and it's a big crime. And so if you don't think that you should be sitting around letting a crime happen without doing something about it, well, I agree. And let's all do something about it. Let's try our best. Let's put our best minds together and solve this issue. So thank you for watching. I appreciate every one of you. I hope that you'll share this out as best you can and let other people see what's going on here for sure. I hope that I see you next week. And in the meantime, be kind to yourself, be kind to everyone around you, especially those people who it's hard to be kind to. And most important, have as much fun as you can. See you next week.